Isabel, are you there? She's like, what was that? What was what? Isabel, right? Oh, the shift. Taking her mute off.
Hello, morning.
Oh.
Sorry, I had no sound at all there.
I just go ahead, Isabel, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Sorry about that. So thank you, Chair, and good morning. The purpose of the report is to provide an update on progress with completing our 25-26 internal audit plan. The plan was agreed by committee in June 2025 and it comprised of 17 assignment areas to be completed by the team during the year. Paragraph 3.1 highlights that 8 internal audit reports will be issued in 25-26. This does not include those reports issued to the Central Scotland Valuation Joint Board. Paragraph 3.1 also states that to date 4 assignments have been completed to final report stage, 1 review is currently in progress and 3 have yet to be started. A summary of progress is set out at Appendix 1 with the scope and the findings of the 3 finalised reports since the last committee at Appendix 2. Paragraphs 4.1 and 4.2 provide an update on our work to identify duplicate creditor payments, and paragraphs 5.1 and 5.2 update you on our work in relation to the global internal audit standards. To finish, I'd ask members to note the recommendations and conclusions. That is that the team are making progress with 25-26 internal audit work. However, this is subject to change and resource will be directed to where it adds the most value. Committee is also asked to note the action taken on the duplicate payments and the update on compliance with the global internal audit standards. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to try and answer. Thank you.
We're open to questions. Do you get any questions? Councillor McTaggart?
This is probably better directed at Kevin, actually. Just wondering when the stores management will be started. Thanks.
That is probably a question for me, Councillor McTaggart. The stores audit is almost ready to go. We have a draft terms of reference ready. It's just the slotting in now of the scheduling of it. It is on our radar to pick up as one of our next audits. It's going to be quite a complex audit. It's not one of our smaller audits, so it needs a wee bit more time to timetable it in, if you like. But that is definitely coming shortly.
On that, you've got on point 12, City and Stirling Clackmannanshire City Region deal not started. Do you know when that'll be started?
No, I'm not as clear on that one. We still have a bit of background to do on that, but just to give you some assurance that there's nothing that will fall off. Anything that is on the plan will be looked at. We're obviously doing the medication and skills audit just now, and our resource is committed over the Falkirk plan as well. So it's just trying to juggle that. But again, assurances that it won't fall off and it won't be lost. It will be done. We just have to do a bit more work around that one.
Okay, thank you. On the reports themselves, I know I'd mentioned this at pre-meeting, but I just wanted to bring it out at the meeting in terms of the 2 areas where we've got limited assurance and no assurance. It was just for the committee to be sure that there's an action plan in place for those items.
So when we write our reports, there's a management action plan at the back of each of the reports, which lists all the recommendations, and services are asked when finalising the audits to complete those columns, which are the dates for implementation and the responsible owners. We have a look at those dates, see if we think that they're reasonable, weighing up weighing up the grading of the recommendation, what the priority was that was given against it. The recommendations are then all added to Pintana, and Pintana is monitored to make sure that recommendations are being implemented appropriately, and if they're ready to be closed down, they're being closed down appropriately. You then also receive the updates from Chris that give you an idea of what's happening with each of the recommendations. So again, there are plans in place for both of those audits, the recommendations of those audits, to make sure that they are implemented and that they're done in time. And if they aren't, that would come back to you. But there is nothing to stop you as a committee wanting further scrutiny on that. And if you're looking for more updates from the service with regards to where they are with those specific recommendations, there's absolutely nothing to stop you asking for progress updates.
You'll bring Chris in.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, obviously, as Isabel had indicated, we do bring a progress report to Audit and Scrutiny on a 6-monthly basis. What we're going to do is move that to the quarterly one, so a report will come to each Audit and Scrutiny Committee. We have a summary of the actions, and which gives you a visual outline of where things have moved, but behind that is a more detailed report with the actions, the timelines, and the accountable officers, and the progress reports against these actions. So that will come on a quarterly rather than a 6-monthly basis.
Okay, that's great to hear, actually. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Fairley.
Thanks, Chair. It's probably just the back of what you just said there, Chris, about going to the quarterly report. There's perfectly obvious through all of this, there are resource implications and there are capacity difficulties in terms of any of that. Moving to that quarterly report, is that going to have any need for further human resource being put in to achieve that? Is it going to get in the road of actually making progress in the things that we're not making progress on? I don't see the value in reporting more often. What it's doing is drawing resource away simply to produce the report rather than tackling some of the things that have been made.
I would agree that there have been resource implications in bringing a number of these recommendations and closing them off. I think bringing it to quarterly will provide that more scrutiny. As Isabel indicated, the management report comes through management. We agree the recommendations and we agree the timescales. So we're making a commitment to those timescales. So there'll be more of a focus to ensure that they've been met rather than being elongated out. There's a number that we'll have seen on reports where there's been a number of years the actions have been outstanding. We do look to tackle the grade 1s and the grade 2s as a matter of urgency because they're the most significant areas of weakness in our control environment. So those will be a focus.
Any other questions? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Chris. So I'm happy to move this paper. Well, I say happy, but obviously there are some real concerns within here, and you know, I'm really pleased actually to be coming back to committee regularly for us to monitor and see how we're progressing on these items. But again, you know, thank you to the internal audit team for all the work that's done. It's good for us to be able to see this, and the reports are always really clear with a lot of detail, so we appreciate the work that you've done on that. So thank you. Can I have somebody to second? Councillor Benny to second. We're open to debate. Would anybody like to debate? Councillor Fairley?
Thanks, Chair. I think probably just to make the point that there are two reports in there that are concerned. There's a limited assurance and particularly one with no assurance. We should lose sight of the fact that there is also a report there actually that has made pretty positive progress and it's likely to get lost given the concern around the other two. So the climate change report, which talks about the deadlines being met, evidence being there and able to validate substantial assurance, we should welcome and celebrate the fact that that has been achieved. It shouldn't get lost, but neither can we ignore it. I've got two other reports, one with limited assurance, which is a frustration, one with no assurance, which is beyond frustration, actually it's a genuine concern. We talked already about there have been 10 recommendations, 8 of those 10 were grade 1 and not one of them has been achieved. That should be a real concern. I do get a bit about further scrutiny and monitoring of what's happening with that. Within the report, it does talk about resource and the capacity to deal with some of this has been a factor in some of that. I just hope that we're not putting steps in place that get in the road and making genuine progress on the things that are sitting there as critical and needing tackles.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McTaggart.
Thanks. Just a similar vein to Councillor Fairley. Obviously, the report with no assurance is extremely concerning. And I would suggest that maybe an update in 3 months is suitable for that one. If there are other ones, as Councillor Fairley said, that are likely to pull you away for things that are more critical, then I could understand the 6-monthly report with that. But things that we can see have been slipping over a long period of time, I think we really need to get on top of that. And I think as a council, it's our obligation to make sure that these things come back on stream effectively.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McTaggart. So it's recommended that the committee notes progress with completion of the 25-26 internal audit plan, action taken on the duplicate payments, and the update relating to the work in compliance with the global internal audit standards. I'd be happy to note. Okay, thank you. On to item 5. So that is the external audit recommendations progress report, and that's going to be Cherie that's going to present that. So Cherie to 0.
Morning, councillors. So this paper provides an update on progress against all outstanding external audit recommendations covering the council's financial statements up to including 22-23, as well as the best value themed audit for 22-23. It reflects the position at the 25-26 half-year point. Overall, as the report demonstrates, we are seeing some positive, strong progress. 73% of all external audit actions are now complete, up from 53% reported to committee last year. This includes the completion of all recommendations from the best value themed audit and significant progress on the 22 financial statement actions. 4 actions remain ongoing. These are areas that involve complex, cross-cutting work or specialist capacity, and are specifically finance team capacity and skills, the review of the schema delegation and standing orders, strengthening our anti-fraud and corruption arrangements, and finalising the benefits realisation tracker for the transformation programme. These actions continue to progress, but have been impacted by recruitment challenges and wider capacity pressures across finance and legal and governance. The completed actions do, however, demonstrate notable improvements in core governance areas, such as reinstated bank reconciliations, enhanced financial reporting on earmark reserves, approval of the medium-term financial strategy, and strengthened audit and scrutiny arrangements. And further detail on those improvements can be found in Appendix A of the report. All external audit recommendations remain embedded within the Council's wider best value continuous improvement framework, and ongoing actions will continue to be monitored through the Corporate Risk and Integrity Forum processes, and a further update will come back to committee once the audits of the 23-24 and 24 and 25 accounts are concluded. And I'm happy to take any questions in the report.
Members, have any questions? Councillor McTaggart.
On Cherie. On the anti-fraud and corruption, are we utilising a digital method to try and ensure that we're on top of the anti-fraud and corruption? And is that actually, are there any areas that we should be concerned about under that realm?
I'll pass that question to Lee. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The good news is we actually have our new fraud officer in post who arrived on Tuesday and is actually in the meeting today. I've got Kaylee working on a number of things, including a lot of the strategy pieces that we need to be updated. She's going to be working closely with a lot of our Forth Valley colleagues in terms of that learning requirement for local government. But digital is one of the things we are looking at as well, as part of the kind of overall package, I think, particularly around legal and our sort of case management system to ensure that we've actually kind of got those records that we can pull on to be able to report to audit and scrutiny. So I think if you could bear with us, as I said, Kaylee's just in post. So yeah, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Perfect.
Thank
I could maybe come in and add in addition to that, to Lee's indicated, just for assurance, obviously we do participate in the National Fraud Initiative, that our auditors involve us with that, and they undertake a 6-monthly exercise. They use software to look at duplicate payments, payments of purchase orders, etc. Clerks to look at every transaction. Other councils it's a limit, but we've got we do more scrutiny on that, so we are using technology as well.
And I would just add to that, which Chris has just said, I've literally just got an email through from Sarah McVie at Falkirk Council commencing that NFI piece of work, which Kaylee will be working with.
Thank you.
On the finance team capacity, so obviously year on year we've had a bit of delay in the financial statements, and it's good to see that the team is in a sort of fairly good place. Do you think going forward we'll be able to get the financial statements ready on a more timely basis? And are there any issues with the external audit team as well in terms of those delays? It's not all just internal.
I'll maybe ask Lindsay if she would come up and help answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor. So just if I'm understanding the question around the financial statements and the delays, the preparation and the audit of the annual accounts has got increasingly more complex as we've gone on in years, with additional disclosure requirements and scrutiny from the audit team. So whilst that's increased, there's the capacity within the finance team to meet the added burden that the audit is putting on us, as well as because of the turnover in the audit teams as well. So we have audit teams that regularly change personnel, and the timing of it. So we're going back to revisit things that were maybe dealt with by somebody else. We've also had a change of partner in the audit team, which has added a bit of delay as well. So whilst there is the time constraints and the capacity issues within the finance team, the delays also been contributed by the audit team, how they've been able to resource or otherwise their team to conduct the audit.
Yeah, and my roundabout question was to sort of show it's not only, like, not meeting our recommendations is only within our own control, there's others as well. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Anyone else with any questions? Councillor McTaggart, yeah.
Just for Lindsay. So what you've just explained, Lindsay, is that creating additional work and causing like duplication in work?
Yes, so additional work through the audit to answer the questions, and additional questions, additional testing coming through, sorry, what was the duplication? Yeah. So as we're finding a number of requests are duplicate because of that timing and because of it's been different audit teams. So just reflecting back on that, whilst we're still ploughing through trying to get through the 23-24 finalisation, the recommendations from previous audits are slipping because we're focusing on that as prioritisation.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yes, so obviously one of the aspects that's partially implemented is transformation. So are we making good progress towards that particular one?
Yes, Councillor. So I don't know. Wendy, do you want to come in terms of the benefits realisation piece? There's a lot of work going on behind in relation to that, and we'll find some collab piece as well as part of that transformation. But Wendy, do you want to maybe talk about the benefits realisation aspects?
Yes, in terms of the benefits realisation plan and the framework for this was reported and approved at the May 24 council meeting. Since then, key metrics for each projects have been agreed and the baseline have been recorded for the projects. However, we want to track the benefits and outcomes from the programme as a whole. So we've been working with directors in terms of what those KPIs would be for the outcomes. They are nearly finalised and we just need to present back to SLG, and then we will put measures in place to have these recorded.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm happy to move this paper because we've seen quite a significant progress, and I think noting the fact that the areas where progress, some of that was out with our control, but we're making good progress in other areas. So I'm really pleased to see that, and well done to the teams involved in moving these things forward. And I'm absolutely delighted that we've got our new fraud officer. We've mentioned that so many times, so welcome at this committee. So that's a significant step forward, and I'm really pleased to see that. So thanks everybody, and it's good to have a good story, so thank you. Anybody want to second? Second, Councillor McTaggart. Okay, we're off to debate. Councillor McTaggart.
Thanks, Chair. Just to echo what you've said about the progress that's been made. However, it's concerning that our financial team are looking at duplicate work every time there's a change of audit delivery, let's say. And I know they're already stretched, so that's unfortunate. It'd be good if we could maybe look at ways to alleviate that if possible. Thanks, Janine.
No, I agree with you on that. Anyone else? No, are we happy to note the paper? Okay, thank you. Is everybody in? Thanks. So we'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, and that's the Council Financial Performance 25-26 as at September 2025, and that's Lindsay Sim.
Thank you. This report provides an update on the financial performance for the Council for the year ended 31st of March 26, based on actual spend for the first half of the year to September. General Fund revenue is forecasted an underspend of 2.6 million for the year, which is a favourable movement of 2.2 million since reported in June, mainly as a result of the revenue benefit derived from the rescheduling of debt. A summary of the position across directorates is provided in Appendix 1, with full detail of spend by service area and forecast movements provided in Appendix 6. A summary of earmarked reserve position is provided in Table 4.6, which shows opening committed reserves at the 1st of April of 16.2 million. And earmarked reserves include funding and income with specific terms of conditions, funding that has been committed for specific council priorities, and funding to cover projects not completed the previous year. Spends may be committed against projects, however, budget is only drawn down when the actual spend is incurred. So as at September, 3.1 million has been drawn down, leaving a balance of 13.1 million. The Clerk Manager element of the Health and Social Care Partnership is forecasting an overspend for the year of 6.5 million as at the end of September, with an overall overspend for the partnership in the region of 15 million before any release of earmarked reserves and contributions from partners. Detail of spend against budget is shown in Appendix 7 of the reports. In relation to savings, the Council is forecast to deliver 3.3 million of the approved 3.8 million, which equates to 86%. A further 12,000 are identified as at risk and will continue to be pursued during the year, and 508,000 have been identified as not achievable this financial year. Details of the individual savings are included in Appendix 2 of the reports. So happy to take any questions on the paper, supported by colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to questions. To get any questions? Over to me then. So in terms of the general fund underspend of 2.64 million, is that a planned underspend, Lindsay?
Thank you. So we never budget for underspend, but we have had mitigations in place since the start of the year, and actually from the previous year, that are around reducing our spend. So essential spend only, and only to recruit to business critical posts. So that is a planned way of generating an underspend in the year. And that's the strategy there, is to boost our reserves. So that gives us the ability to use those reserves going forward to support the collaboration work, the transformation work that we've got, and also to meet any uncertainties that we've been faced with over the past few years and likely in the forthcoming years as well.
And on the health and social care partnership, obviously that's quite a significant overspend, and we're near the end of the financial year. Do you think that's likely to be the position, or is there more sort of mediation in place or remediation to resolve that?
Thank you. Yes, so a significant projected overspend of around 15 million, and we are at February, so the last report was presented just to the IJB board just last week. It has been quite constant, the overspend, throughout the past 6 months. So we don't anticipate much change in that. But what is being looked at is the level of earmarked reserves that we have in the partnership. So the interim CFO is having a focused effort to look to see if there's any of those that could be released. And also looking to see if we could achieve any more of the savings that were approved by the board at the start of the year. So whilst these areas of work are underway, they might result in movement by the end of the year, but it's unable to say what that might be at this point.
Just on the aspect with regards to the IJB committee had asked us, part of its annual report, 24/25, that the finances would come through the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. So the first paper, the IJB financial report, that will go up to the IJB in March, will come to this committee in April.
Lindsay, on page 56, one of the savings that's not been achieved is on service redesign through spend to save. And there's been no saving achieved there. Can you give me some explanation as to why that one's not been achieved? You're at the same page as me. It's tiny, you know, but it's about halfway down the page.
Thank you. Yes, just finding that one. So that's within care and protection service redesign through spend to save. It's noted that the savings are unlikely to be achieved due to the day education residential placements, but they do continue to be reviewed. I don't know if Lorraine would provide any additional information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rennie, for that question. Yeah, the unachieved part of that is, as Lindsay has indicated, is to do with residential placement. So what happens over the year, there is a fluctuation. We've been trying really hard to make savings on that budget by making sure that we can keep children and young people close to home, whether it's in foster care placements or whether it's with their family with additional supports. The reason that that's been unachieved is we had 2 unexpected admissions and where we couldn't find foster care, and we had to go further afield and to residential placements, which can cost between 6,000 to 7,000 a week. But in addition to that, we have had 2 young people in secure accommodation, and that also has meant an unexpected cost to the council, whereas previously they might have been in a young offenders institution. So that's a change in policy at national level. So that's the reason that one's unachieved.
Okay, thanks very much. Anybody else with any questions? Somebody Tyler?
Thanks, Chair. I'm trying to make sense of this bit of a narrative around. It's on page 67, Lindsay. Older people with physical disabilities. You see, we're talking about overspends, underspends, etc. Is the tables blue-headed?
Is that the Investment care management.
Mental health total, it's just below mental health total.
On page 67, yeah.
Yeah.
Wendy, would you want to come in on that?
Just wait to find it.
The mic's still.
Oh, sorry, one sec.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for the question. Wendy Forrest, Head of Strategic Planning and Health Improvement for the Health and Social Care Partnership. In relation to forecast overspend, in relation to this, what I can do is I can speak to the Chief Finance Officer and I provide a briefing after this meeting around the question, if that be helpful. I don't have the detail of that, but I'm happy to provide it.
Thanks, Wendy. Just obviously the concern being that we've got a growing elderly population. And as far as I'm aware, we have very little delayed discharge as far as club manager is concerned. So I'm just wondering how these figures sort of add up when it's mentioning delayed discharges, because club manager, I think, has pretty much under control. And I'd just like to make sure that we're making sure in advance that we can cope with the growing elderly population, and especially in relation to the fact that we're making changes and the care at home. We've also got the short breaks all coming in. Everything seems to be coming in at once, so just like a bit of clarity around that.
Yeah, very happy to provide that clarity, and you're absolutely right. People delayed in hospital is an area that we have consistently performed well. I think your point's well made about how do we actually ensure that we're working with people to prevent them going into hospital, but also maintaining that independence for people and keeping them at home as long as possible without them having to go into whether it's long-term care or into hospital. So I'll happily go back and find some more detail about that. But you're absolutely right. How we plan our services and how we ensure that we're using the money that you delegate to us effectively is absolutely important, and we are accountable to the council for that. And we are really clear as a team about that. Thanks.
Thanks, Benny.
Any other questions? No. Well, happy to move the paper. It's positive to see that underspend position of 2.6 million. Again, thanks, Lindsay, to you and your team for all the work that's put into pulling this information together. I know there's massive budgets behind it, and the level of detail in the tables is really useful to us, the committee, to see what each different element is. So again, thank you for all the work in that. I know there's a lot there involved. So thank you for this paper. It's obviously challenging to see what's going to be happening with the Health and Social Care Partnership, and obviously that as a council is going to be a significant concern to us because it's things that often won't be in our budgets. So obviously that is a concern, but I'm happy to move the paper. I can have somebody to second, Councillor Bennett. On to debate. Anybody like to debate? No? Okay. So are we happy to note the report and the contents within? Yep. Okay, thank you. Right, thanks, Lindsay. And you're back again. So we're now on to the item 7, Treasury Management Quarterly Update to 30th September 2025. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you. So this report provides an overview of the Treasury management activities undertaken within the first 6 months of the year ending the 30th September and confirms the Council's compliance with the Code of Practice on Treasury Management and the approved Treasury Strategy Statement during this period. The key highlights from the report are that cash balances were 11.7 million as at the end of September. A return of 4.17% was achieved on short-term investments, equating to 394,000, and this was higher than budgeted due to active investment activity and prolonged higher interest rates above those budgeted. Interest rate forecasts at the time of writing the report have been provided by our Treasury advisors at Table 1, and this shows that rates are anticipated to fall slightly over the next 12 months. The borrowing requirement for the year is forecast less than budget due to the net effect of the General Fund capital expenditure for both 24-25 and 25-26 being less than anticipated. Repayments of existing borrowing amounted to 25.4 million in the first 2 quarters of the year. An additional borrowing of 23 million was undertaken from the PWLB by the end of September, with a further 30 million expected to be borrowed by the end of the year, in line with budgeted capital expenditure. Debt rescheduling was undertaken in the first half of the year, resulting in the repayment of market loans and PWLB borrowing being undertaken in their place at a lower rate, generating an in-year revenue benefit and future years' cost reductions. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Can you online? I don't have any questions either. You'll be glad to know. So, Councillor Coyne.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Am I okay to ask my question now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fine. Lindsay, on page 71 at 3.13, we see the kind of returns that you're getting on the sort of money market side, which are, just upwards of 4%. Obviously, to an outside investor, there are opportunities in wider portfolios such as listed shares, etc., etc. And I wonder, over the long term, if you do have, permanently £5 million in cash available to invest almost all the time, is there a restriction on you in terms of what you can do in terms of investing outside of sort of simple money market programs, so going into the securities and the listed stock market?
Thank you, Councillor. So the Council operates on a strategy and in line with the guidance through the prudential indicators and the SIPFA guidance of liquidity and security on their investments of cash before return. So we generally have to work on a low risk appetite in terms of risk. So that is predominantly with the investments, the short-term investments that we've got, with the institutions that we've got because of that low risk. So if we were invested in the stock market, we've got that volatility, and usually that would be a long-term investment. We have relatively, although they're sufficient for our day-to-day operations, they're relatively low in terms of cash balances that we could release to put into a longer-term investment. So we focus on that short-term liquidity option to make sure we have enough cash to pay our day-to-day operations and our capital investment. As I said, the Scottish Government and SIPFA rules say that councils must not invest purely to make a profit, and we must not borrow money to invest for a financial return. So buying shares in these type of companies and that operations would fall into that prohibited category. We also have approved counterparties per our Treasury strategy, and that's in line for the advice from our Treasury advisors. So the investments we have with highly rated banks and similar low risk institutions match that, whilst if we were in the stock market, they would fall out with that criteria.
Okay, very comprehensive reply. Thank you very much, Lindsay.
I'd imagine, Lindsay, if you were investing in stock market, I know there's a longer term return, but there's the chance that will bottom out, like in the chaos that we're in the world at the moment. That would be probably a very risky strategy, I would imagine. Is that right?
Thank you. Yes, in terms of that, there is that volatility within the stock market. So you would tend to only invest for the longer term. But as I said, we would need the cash for liquidity purposes. So we couldn't really afford to take that risk where we might have to withdraw money when the rates had gone down and then we lost money on that investment. We're ultimately using taxpayers' money here. So this is public funds. So we have that responsibility to make sure they're invested with that low risk.
Good. Any other questions? No other questions? Okay. Very interesting to read this paper, Lindsay, and obviously I've been really impressed with the way that you're able to sort of move around to different products to be able to get the best return for the council. So that's really positive to see. So thank you very much for all the work that you do in this. So again, happy to move. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Quinn. And we're open to debate. Would you like to debate the paper? Councillor McTaggart.
Just to say thanks to Lindsay for clear understanding of where her money should be sitting at whatever time.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So thanks, Councillor McTaggart. So are we happy to note the paper? Yeah, okay, thank you. We're on to paper 8, which is our corporate risk register, and that's Cherie Jarvie.
So this report presents an overview of the Council's corporate risk register for Q3 25-26. It summarises how risks are identified, assessed and managed to support informed strategic planning and decision making. The Council faces a broad range of operational and strategic risks driven by both internal activity and external national or global pressures. Effective risk management ensures challenges are anticipated and that mitigating activity is planned and implemented, ensuring resilience of services against service delivery against the Council's agreed outcomes and priorities. The Council follows a systematic risk management process, reporting corporate and service risks to committee on a regular basis. A structured risk framework operates across team, service, directorate, and partnership and corporate levels, ensuring significant issues are captured, escalated appropriately, and reviewed consistently. Each quarterly risk review involves environmental scanning of information from internal and external sources, reviewing existing risks and mitigations, identifying emerging external and internal threats, consideration of audit and self-assessment findings, and determining where risks should be escalated or demoted based on the severity and cross-service impacts. This maintains a corporate risk register that is current, evidence-based and responsive to change. Not all risks can be removed, as some are inherent to service delivery. Avoiding change can also introduce further risks, such as non-compliance, limiting workforce capability, or missing opportunities for collaboration and innovation. The focus is therefore on ensuring informed, balanced decision-making rather than eliminating all risk. Delivery of the risk management strategy agreed by Council in August 2025 continues with improvements including enhanced training and staff engagement, stronger integration with internal and external audit, the annual governance statement process and best value process, and reporting has been strengthened through clearer review dates on risks and the target scoring, clearer links to our strategic outcomes, improved visual presentation, and the addition of mapped actions and performance indicators for risks that are being tolerated to show ongoing monitoring. Current priorities through the Corporate Risk and Integrity Forum include strengthening the evidence used to support risk scoring, ensuring mitigating actions are well targeted and are proportionate, improving consistency across services, and enhancing integration with wider governance and assurance mechanisms. These improvements aim to support transparency, stronger assurance, and support more effective scrutiny of risk by elected members. The risk register at the end of Q3 provides detailed descriptions of 20 corporate risks. 12 of these are red rated, 6 are amber, and 2 are green. Following the review process of each risk, 1 has changed in score since the last update to committee in December. This risk is organisational transformation, which has moved from an amber scoring to green, reflecting progress of the Be the Future transformation programme. Happy to take any questions on the report. I'm also joined by colleagues on Teams and in the chamber to help answer any specific service risks or questions.
Okay, thanks, Sheree. Any questions? Councillor McTaggart?
Thanks, Sheree. I'm looking at information not managed effectively. And I'm just wondering how close we are to that being not read, because it's obviously a crucial part of governance to make sure that we are managing that effectively. So I'm not really comforted by the things that are suggested in the table, wondering if the new officer might have an impact on that, but I'd just like a bit more information, please.
I can maybe come in to kick that one off. So Council will be aware, excuse me, we've reported before that we're currently under intervention level 3 with the Scottish Information Commissioner. We have had a couple of engagements with them in terms of the action and improvement plan that we put forward, and they're very assured by the progress we're making. There's been a slight extension on the basis of we're coming up to an election period, so we're extending that intervention. There are some areas where we need to improve in terms of responses to FOIs and the quality of our FOIs that need to be responded to. And we're also looking at, through digital transformation, looking at software to support our records management, which we're reviewing the records management plan, and looking at how we store and hold under duration of and duplication of records. So there's a lot of work going on to that. So I believe that score will reduce over the coming months, but there is still work ongoing and still areas that we need to do and improve on.
And so add to that, and we are actually doing constant training. There is both Evelyn Patterson's, the DPO, along with the team, are putting in place pretty much over the next 12 months, for officers in relation to how to respond to FOIs, how to deal with record management, etc. The new records management officer has been in and about and is doing really well there in terms of, you know, communications with the teams.
Thanks, Chair.
See on the point, harm to staff through violence and aggression. Obviously, I know that's a new area that we're covering at the moment, and I recognise from previous audit scrutiny committees that's been a lot of it around the school estates in terms of that's where the concerns are. I noted that there was sort of training for staff in no home working, and I know that won't really be something that's possible as much in that environment. And that in terms of the training, I wonder how much training is effective or how much preventative work we're doing to ensure that staff are not in that situation in the first place.
I'm going to ask some of my colleagues to come and help me answer that question. Colin, certainly
Thanks,
from an
Colin.
education.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, firstly, no one should come to work and feel like they're in danger of getting hurt or experience violence and aggression. Your question specifically about training, so I can just bring that to life a wee bit. So we've seen a 17.5 reduction in incidents from August to December this year compared to the year before. So part of that is related directly to the training we're giving staff and the support we're giving staff. That might be resources, it might be specialism. So trauma-informed practice, supported by our AP team, has been central to that work with our teams, and that's a continual, as we get new staff, we can do it targeted, but we've also got blanket approaches to make sure our whole system, not just in education, but our partners as well, are really informed. We've increased our ASN teachers, so specific teachers in clinic manager that are supporting young people. We've got more of them than previous. And that is just not new resource, but shifting resource to make sure we're meeting the change in need. Targeted ASD outreach teams. So we've got well-resourced outreach teams that don't just sit in one school, but respond to that need to make sure they can go in and actually help individual teams, give suggestions to maybe a child maybe needs more outdoor play, maybe a different environment within the school. That sort of outreach has led to us moving to have 10 specific flexible spaces within our schools. So it's mainstream schools, learners that might be presenting with that, but now have got really creative spaces that are more welcoming and nurturing with skilled staff, so we can really meet that need instead of relying on a specialist resource, which sometimes is a go-to, but sometimes not the best for the family or the child. A sharp end to this, where the incidents have been quite clear that young people repeatedly presenting with behaviours that tends to be related to autism. And we've worked closely with Autism Scotland, who are doing important work in the family centre around about individuals who are finding it hard to access the mainstream school. Such really small numbers of children getting that bespoke support with social work, education, and the expertise of Autism Scotland coming round the table. So they are some of the strategies that are going on. But I would want to emphasise we've got 7,806 kids, got a lot of kids, over 7,000. We had 19 children present with incidents in December. So it's a very small group of children that are coming to school. None of these have been high risk as in severity, but they're still an issue. So it's just been clear that we really know where the children are, and we work with our staff and unions to make sure that they are content with the support we're offering is continually reviewed.
No, I think, Colin, the reason I raised that question, and sorry, this is more a comment, but I'll sort of try and make it into a question, but there's been some press recently about all of this, and I think it's really important to stress the work that is done in the club manager schools about sensory areas and really important work that's happening. And I don't think that is recognised enough, so I really appreciate you bringing that out. And I think probably I would say there must be some level of frustration with the work that's been done, but it's not getting out there into the wider community. Is that correct? Turn it into a question.
Yeah, I would say the answers are not always just teachers. It's been working with real third sector partners like Autism Scotland, like I've mentioned, but there's many more, and us really thinking about the whole family's needs, not just is this child presenting with this behaviour. So our schools are really trying their best to minimise some of this. We will continue to track it, and that's really important. So we'll continue to see people putting in forms if there's an incident of violence and aggression. It may just be a swear word, which isn't okay. A lot of the data is around about early years in primary. There was only one for secondary in there, so it's clear to see where that is. But I think you're right, it's teachers and partners coming together from social work, working with families to make sure we can, help the individual.
And it's not just confined to club manager, is it? The level of additional support needs is increasing across the country. So it's everywhere in terms of the growth and additional support needs.
I was just also going to come in as well there in terms of the general, me and Colin speak on a regular basis in relation to any kind of incidents where there's an impact of violence towards teachers, not necessarily from students themselves, but from parents and third parties. And, we've got a process in which we deal with that.
No, thank you. Thanks very much. Alistair, do you want to come in?
I think Colin's given a really comprehensive answer there from the educational lens, but it's also probably worth reflecting what's on offer in terms of this sort of issue across the council as well. So Colin had mentioned that training approach. So we do have violence and aggression training, which we're delivering in-house, but we're able to tailor as well, depending on the situations, depending on the service as well. So it's a fantastic resource to have, and it is being kind of proactively being rolled out as well. Now, on top of that as well, we also have enhanced risk assessment processes and the ability to record and report on those via the Audit health and safety system as well, which is giving us an incredible wealth of detail to then be able to act on going forward. I know that Shoreditch, our health and safety manager and team, have also been working with the education team by attending head teacher meetings as well to get a really more in-depth understanding of the issues that they're faced, so we can tailor that approach. And also they are raising that at a national level with the health and safety executive as well, in terms of see if there's consistent approaches that can be taken to try and address these issues. I think what that means for the council, and just to kind of back up what Colin's been saying from that education side of things, is that the processes are in place there, the training is in place there. I think it now just needs time to see the impact of all that range of interventions that are now in place.
Okay, thanks very much. Judy, you want to come
Yeah, it was just to really sort of emphasise that because this is on the corporate register, we are looking right across all service areas. So while in the two committees since this risk has been added to the register, most of the questions have focused on education, but it isn't just children and young people. You know, I think there's a lot of staff in public-facing roles, and we do need to consider the risks to all of those individuals across a range of different service areas, rather than just within the education service.
Yeah, I was thinking about that in terms of just when we were speaking there about in schools, it's often parents. Is there a lot of sort of behaviour from the public towards staff that could be challenging as well, that maybe is very difficult to deal with?
Yes, it's certainly something from a customer services point of view that we see. Obviously, that is often over the telephone or in written correspondence or communication, but those are also recorded as acts of violence and aggression if a member of the public has been particularly rude or unpleasant to our staff. Those are also recorded. So that is definitely something that we see and we monitor on a regular basis.
No, that's absolutely right. Nobody should go to their work and feel threatened in any way. So, yeah, absolutely. Councillor McTaggart?
I'm actually concerned with things that are out with education. I know we've had that, and I know it's been in the press and everybody's dealing with this as best they can. Housing officers, social workers, social work assistants, they're people who are likely to actually enter an aggressive situation rather than react to it, as in teachers or teaching assistants. So how much protection are we putting around people who we are asking to potentially go into an aggressive situation, oftentimes unaware that they're going to be going into an aggressive situation, but situations that can escalate rapidly. I've had reports of it myself. So we know that there's a potential for the people that we are asking our social workers and our housing officers to visit. So how much protection can we offer them when we're knowingly, not necessarily deliberately, but knowingly putting them into an at-risk situation?
I can come in on that one, Councillor. We have a range of supports that are available for staff. It will be nuanced and it will depend on the situation that people are entering into. But that could be things like personal alarms systems, but we also have a PVP register that we keep and maintain within the council as well. On top of that, I will come back to the training and upskilling that we offer for staff as well. And I've mentioned it already, but it seems appropriate to mention it again, which is the approach that we're taking to violence and aggression training within the council. So just to give a little bit more detail on what I've already mentioned, this is an approach that has originated from the NHS, and we've worked with them in partnership to develop this training approach, but we've also tailored it specifically for the council. Now, again, as I've already mentioned, because we deliver this in-house, it offers us a fantastic situation where we can actually tailor the content of that approach, that training approach, depending on the employees and the services that want to use it. So the approach for education to social work for housing will be slightly different depending on the scenarios that they are encountering and the feedback that we're getting on that from the services. The result of that is it allows us to provide a much more tailored package of support to employees, whereas previously it might have been generic support that wasn't specific to the scenarios that people are experiencing. Now we can make it absolutely specific to what they are experiencing to ensure that we can provide an intervention which is actually supporting the needs that people are experiencing out in the community.
Can I come back in? I'm going to be very blunt about this, Alistair, sorry, but I was a housing officer many moons ago, right? And I worked in Mar Policy's Alloa Park. Thankfully, I came for there. Nobody ever frightened me going in, but I know other officers who did feel frightened. They were given at that time, before mobile phones were regular pieces of equipment, a radio with a big aerial on the top of it. And everybody was given that to contact the office if there should be acts of violence. And the point I'd made at the time was the only use that radio was if you grabbed it by the aerial and hit somebody or the head with it if they were attacking you, because trying to get through to somebody was crazy. So my question, having shared that, is all the training in the world isn't going to prevent somebody from being hurt if they're in there on their own and they come against aggression. You can train till you're blue in the face. You cannot train for every scenario, and I'm no belittling your training in any way. What I'm suggesting is that we need to look at wider elements of safety for our staff. So, for example, making sure every social worker assistant, every housing officer has a panic alarm. Because even if they've all got a mobile phone, by the time you dial that mobile phone, even if it's speed dial, somebody could have you in the throat. So I would suggest that maybe we need to be a bit more practical around the procedures. I understand the training, and the training's all well and good, but the actual procedures that people have to go through. So would you agree that that would be a sensible route, or is it a route that we've already considered and discounted?
I would agree. I would also disagree that it's probably been discounted, because, as I say, there are a range of supports there for staff. And I have no doubt that within specific areas there will be policies and procedures to ensure that we are protecting staff on a proactive basis, be that with personal alarms, or be it through an app system that I know some areas use, or through things like the PVP register. As I say, it's not about one approach, it's about multiple approaches that ensure the safety of staff when they're going out into our communities. That's what you want to know.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered some of what I was going to talk about, but a personal alarm, an app and a phone is just one defence in the risk assessment. There needs to be a full risk assessment that's undertaken in terms of when officers are going out to areas where they're known to be violent or aggression. We are looking at procuring kind of a corporate solution. I know that in Lorraine's area through social work and criminal justice, they use People Safe, the app. We're looking at its use in housing as well. So we're looking at rolling that out. But as you say, getting into mobile phone and pressing that app, there has to be a wider risk assessment around that. And that's just one element in the defence, and our health and safety colleagues work closely with our directorates in relation to ensuring that overall review is undertaken. As you say, technology itself isn't going to just stop someone if they're intent on creating violence, but we do endeavour to do our best to protect our staff.
Thanks, Alice.
Albert's also just going to come in there as well. If anybody feels in fear of alarm, whether that is an elected member or staff, the first port of call is calling the police. That's what anybody should be doing. That's the advice I give to all officers. I appreciate, we've got all the training, all this complements that. If you're in fear, an alarm, the police is your first port of call.
Thank you. For Benny?
Thanks, yeah. I just want to say, I mean, I agree with everything that Jane's saying, because it's not a thing that you can see and you go, oh, there's something happening over there. It's actually right beside you. And before you can do anything, your mind just goes blank, because you say, what are these people doing? And there has to be consequences for that. And as you say, the police is the first port of call, but then the police can be a while coming in. So there has to be some kind of way of seeing this happening before it gets into the stage where it's happened. And I know that's going to be a difficult thing to do, but I think we need to do something that because never ever should, I mean, I've been in different offices and all the rest of it, different places working, and I've never had the need to go, oh, I'm walking out of here because I don't believe I'm safe. So, and that should be the same for every single person.
Isn't that right, Councillor Benny? Just say, isn't that right for questions?
Isn't that right? I've done that for a while.
I would agree with Councillor Benny. As I say, there will be, Lorraine and Kevin will be better placed in terms of knowing the clients they're engaging with and where there's additional risk and where maybe it's not a single officer that's going to interact, and goes, as I say, goes part to that bigger risk assessment and assessing the risk when you're going into it. Alison mentioned the PVP register that we've got, where we do record clients who are aware to us. There's more work that needs to be done on that. We need to improve on that. We need to be able to access it council-wide. We're using the robotic system to be able to do that. We're looking at doing some joint work with Falkirk Council to see how we can use both systems to enhance that assurance to staff as well. But there's multiple layers of protection, I think, that need to be put in and not just one.
Thank you.
If I could just comment in one last point, we've also worked with Scotland on risk assessing our public parts of this building and other buildings where we've maybe got customers or clients coming in, and that may be through an arrangement that we've made that is supportive of our staff, that we've got people coming in. So we've got alarmed rooms, we've got protocols for rooms for our staff, so they have to take a physical alarm in with them. We always make sure that we've got people on site if there are any issues. We would always encourage services to share information with the emergency resilience team and the relationship that in Kilncreeks particularly, if they are expecting somebody to come in who's likely to be upset or angry. We have had cases, but we've also got really good relationships with Police Scotland. They're obviously right next door. We have had occasion, in the last 6 months to ask them to come and help us with, particularly difficult customers in reception. So we do have practices for people coming into our own buildings as well. We've also got our customer contact policy, which was agreed by council, and that does give us the ability. It is difficult when you've got statutory services, I know, but it does give us the ability to put specialist management arrangements in place for people who have been particularly difficult or are particularly difficult for us to manage in terms of providing services to.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much. Any other questions? Councillor Fairley.
Thanks, Chair. It's about the school estate condition. One of the same topics, and everybody else is finished on the.
Yeah.
So, in terms of school estate condition risk, it talks about after a near missing incident, service instructed a series of structural review surveys on the primary and earlier years estate. Has that taken place? Is it completed? And the risk of this was about disrupting education provision. The plan is that the work is identified needs to be done will be done during out of hours and weekend holidays. Have we identified anything at all that puts that at further risk, or is it something we still believe could be managed in that way?
Thank you, Chair. If you don't mind, I'll maybe start off and maybe ask Colin to add to the feedback. There's been a series of condition reports undertaken in the building. We are working with contractor TMA, who are also working with us in the Wellbeing Hub, around about the examination of those condition reports. There is a programme of works being planned up for the 5 key schools that we've already identified for works to be done, being designed to have as minimal impact on our schools, and we are still currently reviewing that to see how that will actually plan out in terms of when and where, with the intent to try and make it as optimal during the holiday periods as we can. We do know it will need to take place during curricular periods as well, and we're putting in place a programme that we can work with establishment heads to programme that to have as minimum disruption to schools whilst they may be displaced from the classroom, and they won't necessarily be displaced from the school. Colin, is there anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think it's moving at pace now. We've got a company that can work with us and actually manage the contractors coming into our school. Some of the risks previously was we had things in place, we didn't have a timeline of when the contractors would be actually on site, but now they're working that up. We'll start to see that in the months ahead, and that'll help us work with our parent councils and our individual schools to make sure that communication of where is the work's taking place, when it's taking place. Obviously, the summer months and stuff, you know, we'll be rubbing our hands if it was just throughout the school holiday. It will likely not always be that, but if they can do outdoor classrooms regarding sort of porta cabins, if you like, but we can then plan for that ahead and notify parents and try to minimise any disruption. So I think since December, when the risk was probably recorded, we're more confident that will come down at pace once we get that timeline.
Okay, so can I just clarify that? So there's the 5 priority schools and there's the roof surveys. Those are 2 separate things, aren't they? And there's the 5 roof surveys identified further risks that might impact an ability to not cut into the education provision.
So there is 2 separate exercises taking place, one around about the 5 priority schools, and they're all being taken forward in that manner. There is a condition surveys that's been looked at and the roof inspections for the rest of the primary estate, and they've been reviewed and will be incorporated into our maintenance programme, in which we will try and target that as much as we can during the holiday periods for the rest of the schools. In that sense, the current identified risks is the 5 priority schools, of which is that programme that we've spoke about. But bringing this in is certainly helping us identify and react in advance in terms of where we were back at that period in December.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm happy to move the paper. I just wanted to comment actually to all involved how positive it is, the level of detail within the risk register. I mean, obviously it's frustrating that we're still raising a lot of the risk, but as I've said repeatedly, it's good that we're honest as a council to see where we've got areas that we need to improve. Sometimes the frustration for us as councillors, I think, is that we see things being publicised where we know the detail in the background and it's not really clear to the public the amount of work that is being done. So I think these committees are really important to show the level of work that's happening, that's to mitigate these risks. So although they're not moving down, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, even in just what Phil had raised there. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that maybe people are not aware of. So I think the context is really important, but thanks so much. I mean, I think I can really see the work that's going into that risk register, but also even on just a discussion on a few points today for us to see the level of work that's actually happening behind that, I think isn't fully reflected, but that's not any fault of the register, but it's important to see just how much work's actually going on. So thank you. Somebody to second. Councillor Bennett. Open to debate. Councillor McTaggart.
Just on Phil's point, I was in the Learning Estate Strategy meeting yesterday, and there is massive progress with what's been reported there. So it's really good to see that things are starting to come together, albeit it's been a bit delayed, but it is starting to gel now. Thanks, Chair.
Anyone else want to come in? No. David, happy to note. Okay, move on to the next paper, which is the interim report People Community Wellbeing Plan, April 2025 to December 2025, and that's Lorraine. Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you, Chair. This report is the interim report, as just indicated, on the People Community Wellbeing Plan. And just a reminder that is an integrated plan which combines a number of reports all into one, including the People Directorate's business plan. I'm joined this morning by colleagues across the senior management team of People, and they will come up to answer questions as required. Just to say that the approach that we've taken, just a bit of a recap, the approach is to look at an outcomes approach to what we're doing across People and across all of those plans. So the report itself is made up of 3 key elements, and that you have to pin them all together to understand the process. It's different from what traditionally we have presented at Audit and Scrutiny. So
If you look at the three main parts of the plan, there's a report on the planned actions which were approved by council when we originally agreed the plan. We've then got some progress, the outcomes themselves, and we've got some indicators which show the progress as well. So you have to look at the three things together to get the progress across the three plans. It's, as I say, it's slightly different. The plans that we've looked at are on page 110, and the actions that we're reporting against are on page 111. So I'm happy to take any questions on the plan itself and bring in colleagues as required.
I've got a couple, Lorraine. In terms of page 115, the Strive Rapid Intervention Service, I noted that there was no integrated mental health providers involved in that, and I just wondered if there were plans to change that.
I'll just bring in Maddie Muirhead, who leads on the Strive work, who can answer that question for us.
Thank you, Councillor. We don't currently have any NHS representation in the Strive team. However, we have had in the last week confirmation that we now have 2 GPs who have agreed to be our Strive links into primary care. We're meeting with them at the end of the month to decide how that will actually look in practice. And we're also now engaging with colleagues in CCHC to see about getting representation in the morning meetings. We are still connecting people into mental health services, but they've been done through our community connector post. She's making GP appointments and supporting people along to anything medical, including mental health services. And I think you'll see in figure 3, the community connector is the second highest support that is offered for Strive referrals that come in.
Thanks very much. On the page 134, I was so encouraged to see that Click Manager seems to be ahead in terms of deaths by suicide, because obviously deaths by suicide are a huge national issue. And I just wondered if you can connect that to anything for good practice in terms of why that is, that we are doing so well in that area.
So I'll bring in Leslie Taylor, our principal educational psychologist, who has to take a lot of the credit for a lot of the work that has gone on, but it is fairly across the whole of people and beyond, I think.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Councillor Rennie. We don't know the full detail as to what has led to the drop-off in the death rate for 11 to 25-year-old. It's most likely that it's a combination of all the work that's happening across Click Manager, so both the early intervention work that's happening through the Family Wellbeing Partnership, right the way through to the in-person supports that we have through counselling in schools and some of our digital services. So it's a really difficult thing for us to try and tease out and work out. If it was really straightforward, that would be great. We could just say, like, we'll do lots of that. But like I say, I think it is that ecosystem of change that's developing and that continuum of support where people are being able to access supports when and where they need it. But also there's other work happening in the background to reduce the predeterminants of mental health.
Okay, thanks very much. Just another issue, sorry, I was flipping between pages here, but I had noticed in the report that there's a lot of work being done about diversion from prosecution. And I just wanted to tease out, I think that's extremely positive. Does that mean that we've not got the same level of people who are repeat offenders that are coming back through the system time and again because we're doing that work?
So just as Leslie's indicated in terms of suicide, I think the diversion from prosecution sits across a number of areas within People Directorate and beyond as well. I think that's the whole purpose of bringing everything together into one plan. So some of the work that Scott, I'll ask him to come in just now to explain some of the work that he's doing within community justice. But there's also a big amount of work going on across education and the Family Wellbeing Partnership as well at the younger end, and including into children's services as well and the youth justice. So it's a number of people that we need to bring in. Scott first, if that's okay. Please, Scott.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Chair. In terms of diversion, that's obviously something we've put a lot of resources into to strengthen a kind of robust action plan for those who the court would like to keep out of the justice system. That's worked very well, but it does fall back to exactly what Lorraine and Leslie have just said. This is part of a whole systems approach, and it is our early intervention. So we work very closely with employability, we're working very closely with our youth justice and everybody else, housing and everybody else that is required as part of that whole system to support individuals going into that system. Diversions, we're actually, as part of the Community Justice Partnership, we're trying to get ahead of diversions so we don't actually see more diversions coming in. So beyond, try and get ahead of the curve with that as well. So we're working closely with the Procurator Fiscals as part of our Community Justice Partnership as well, about getting ahead of the curve. And we also have brought in individuals with lived experience to strengthen that diversion as well. So yeah, very confident that we're going in the right direction with this. But again, emphasising that a real strength of Click Manager is that collaboration and that effective communication, and there's less preciousness about that doesn't sit with us, that sits there. So it's really all getting pulled together and everybody's doing their bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. If I can bring in Colin as well, just to illustrate another part of that whole system, which is working to contribute to that.
Yeah, I'm very aware that not 100% of our young people walk into school actively engage, and at times young people are picking up charges in the local community that we work in. They're still in our mainstream schools. So it's important that we really understand what that level of need, what would engage the young people, what would be an early indicator that we could divert them onto something more successful and more interesting to them. So we've tailored our curriculum, and we call it the Click Manager Active Learning Academy. And that's where the young people, again, can still attend their mainstream school and pick up key qualifications. But we're finding through partnerships, not just with teachers, but with teachers working with these partners, has real powerful outcomes. So we're working closely with the Hive locally, organisation just in the town here, and a lot of the learners are spending a lot more time there, building up relationships with the staff, third sector and schools, and engaging in things like sport as well. But it's not just been them. There's many more from Duke of Edinburgh, our sports teams here. There's so many of you here for a while explaining them. But if you could think that they're building really engaging relationships through that curriculum every day, still welcomed in their school, we're seeing that's where we're building better relationships, not just with a child, but with a parent. So yeah, we were seeing things like that is making a big difference to actually avoid going down that route of picking up charges. Each of the secondaries has got a campus cop, a community policeman, whose key role is not to push down the letter of the law, actually to build relationships with the kids and help them bridge that gap that some of them have in their communities. Okay.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? Councillor Fairley?
Thanks, Chair. So the Women and Girls Safety RAG status is sitting at amber at the moment, and it talks about external funding reductions present sustainability risks, requiring continued oversight and partnership investment. Could you maybe spell it in a bit more detail about what it is that looks like for us, and are we concerned that that sitting at amber is a risk that's likely to go up rather than down?
Thanks, Councillor Fairley, and I'll bring in Scott shortly as well. But yes, it is a concern. We get a very small amount of money from through the funding pots for violence against women and girls, £12,000 actually. That's all we get for Click Manager. We do fund women's aid and rape crisis as well separately through our commission services work. But to take a strategic approach and bring the partners together and to work across all those organisations and to really push forward with a plan and a strategy is really difficult. We've got very limited capacity, and that's where the funding constraint comes in. We would like to do an awful lot more. We do as best we possibly can with the partners around the table. We just met this week. I chair the Violence Against Women and Girls Partnership, but we have very, as you can see in the report, we have significant numbers of domestic abuse being reported within Click Manager and going on to prosecution. Our supports, we feel as if we're having to beg, steal and borrow, quite frankly, to be able to fund that area. And Scott does amazingly well in terms of trying to pull money from here, there and everywhere. It's also a feature of Strive. We have a women's worker in Strive. So we haven't got the resource to be able to target that area as best we possibly can. I'd just bring in Scott just in case he wants to add anything to that. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Lorraine. Yes, unfortunately, I mean, this is a clear identified area of need within Click Manager Council. We remain in quite the highest percentile for gender-based violence. Despite this, we get one of the lowest awards in terms of funding. Now, what I would say is that in terms of our funding for the last 5 years, we've clearly demonstrated improvements moving forward in terms of supports and interventions. But we've also received, as part of our justice team, a 68% reduction in our funding for that specific area of early intervention, which covers our non-court mandated domestic violence support as well as our statutory. This has resulted in us losing a position already in a post within our justice team for a women support worker. But as Lorraine says, that collaboration's there again. We are able to pool with our colleagues in the Community Justice Partnership and hopefully our Violence Against Women and Girls Partnership, and look to draw more funding in to ensure that that service remains. That service will remain for the next financial year. We have got measures in place to sustain that, but similar to the Independent Violence Against Women and Girls funding review, where it indicated that there needs to be investment in sustainability and transparency for access to that, that's not available currently with the Scottish Government, and it's something that we continue to push for. So that's why it's sitting at 70% just now. I don't want to sit on our laurels and say that we've absolutely solved this, because that sustainability isn't there yet, but the need clearly is, and the benefits of the work that we've been doing for the last 5 years is clearly evident, and we're looking to build and grow on that. Thanks.
Councillor McTaggart? You finished, Councillor Fairley? Yeah, Councillor McTaggart.
Thanks, Chair. Lorraine, do you think that the community planning partnership should be focusing more on delivering measures that are going to help to intervene? If we've got areas that we're struggling to meet, we know that there's a detrimental effect there. So I'm wondering if the CPP might be a better focus for that.
Are you thinking specifically in relation to violence against women and girls? So in the development day that we had, October, was it? I think, it was identified as a priority for the CPP, violence against women and girls. We do have a partnership which is represented by members of the CPP in terms of officers, so NHS, police, they're all part of that. I think there is more that we could do. I think that part of the problem is not having the capacity here for us to drive that change, because there is nobody coming forward within the CPP to say, right, I'll take a lead in that, which is often the way within the CPP. They look to the council to be able to take the lead and to get the plans underway. So we are working on that. There was, as I mentioned, a priority. There was 3 priorities identified. The support for women and girls was one of them. The third sector said they would lead in that, but they've actually decided that they haven't got the capacity to take it forward either. So we're in that without having resource here to be able to, targeted resource. I think that's what Scott and I are trying to work out, is where do we get that targeted resource? And it doesn't need to be the council, but we need to contribute as a CPP to that priority. So I think you're right that that is part of the answer, but we haven't managed to work it through to a solution yet. I think it's probably worth saying Maddie leads on the work and the collaboration with the transformation space. One of the areas that we're looking at within the transformation space at the moment is also support for women and girls. So we're trying every avenue where there's possible funding, but it's the strategic oversight, I think, that we really need to get right, and we haven't got it right yet, I would say.
I'll start with, would you agree? Would you agree that a collaborated approach would be far more effective? I mean, when you think around the things that happen through violence to women and girls, so the police are involved, health's involved, we're involved, so all these things would be eased if people collaborated and looked at ways to address this issue. And as Scott's just said, we're a tiny wee place. We need collaboration to be able to, I'm not going to say attack problems, but address problems, but I would say attack, because it is something that just keeps growing and growing and growing, regardless of our input. So a collaborated approach would ease the burden on the police, would ease the burden on the NHS. I've been saying this about CPP for years and years and years, but it's nothing different. but certainly in that, to see if we could make some kind of inroads to reducing that in Clackmannanshire. Thanks, Lorraine.
Yes, I would agree. I think we have tried really hard. That's a part of the plan, was to try and demonstrate how if you collaborate across, you can improve outcomes. And that's what I think we're starting to see as you look at the performance across the one plan and you see the level of partnerships that are contributing to that, and the alliance partnerships are contributing to that. I just don't think we've got this area as strong, this particular area of violence against women and girls, that collaboration. Collaboration is not easy. Across, and when you've got governance across different organisations, particularly like police and health and the third sector, to get them through their own governance arrangements to be able to collaborate around a one plan is really tricky. We're working at that all the time. I think it's the only solution, quite frankly, in terms of, and I've spoken about this, you know, nationally as well as locally. We haven't got enough money in the pot individually to be able to tackle really complex problems, and we have to work collaboratively and start to try and pool our resources. We're making some progress on that, but I think we've definitely got further to go. But I don't think we should underestimate how far we've come in Clackmannanshire in terms of Strive and things like that. That is a collaboration and does pool resources.
Thanks, Lorraine. Thanks, Chair.
Any other questions? No. Well, I'm very happy to move this paper. I think this is an excellent presentation in terms of the paper. It's very easy to read, very easy to absorb, and in terms of the content there is absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to note that, again, the COSLA Chairperson's Award 2025 for the Family Wellbeing Partnership. I think it's excellent to see. That's a really positive way forward, but also I was really pleased to note the reduction, well, to nothing in terms of suicide rates, which commendation to Leslie and her team for that. But I think, you know, that's really positive to see, and I think it's not replicated anywhere else as far as I'm aware. But also in terms of, as I brought out there, the diversion from prosecution, because that obviously impacts on so many areas of life. It's like, you know, it hits on every area of society, and we know it's a really key area. So it's really important to see that moving forward. But also, you know, we touched on the end about kind of violence against women and girls. I think, again, violence against women and girls, you'll see people in mental health services, you'll see people who are in contact with the police, you'll see people who are in contact just with general health. It's like across everything in terms of like the level of trauma and the level of impact that has. So I think that partnership working, which I've heard really loud and clear, I think from Scott and yourselves, really in terms of what's happening in Clackmannanshire, is really positive, but also the resource aspects in Clackmannanshire remain challenging. We were never seen as somebody that's got the kind of high level of deprivation that we do in terms of funding arrangements, and I think that needs to improve in the future to ensure that we can address the complex needs that Clackmannanshire has. We were doing so much work that's represented in this report, but we don't have the funding to back up and acknowledge that work moving forward, where we should be seen as a kind of system of best practice, I think, from what you see here, which is really tangible. And I wish the public could see this. It's really tangible to see the level of work that's going on. So thank you very much to the work from everybody. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Fairley, open to debate. Councillor McTaggart.
Just to say that I think without the Family Wellbeing Partnership, without the Strive initiative, we would be much further back than we are right now, because they've been drivers for transformation and change. And I mean, it's held up as a model and throughout Scotland. Obviously getting the award made it more prominent, but they're excellent initiatives, and I would hate to see them lessened by reduced funding elsewhere that's pulling resources away. Thanks, Lorraine, for that. And the team.
Anybody else? So we've to note the report, note the explicit alignment between Community Wellbeing Plan and the WLOIP strategic outcomes and priority themes for a wellbeing economy. Note the explicit agreement to the Be the Future Transformation Plan, and note the explicit alignment to best value duties. Are we happy to note all those areas? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. We'll move on to the next item, which is the Clerk Manager Locality Performance Report 2025-26 Quarter 3, 1st October to 31st December 2025, and that will be ready for us.
Good morning again, councillors. Wendy Forrest, Head of Strategic Planning, Health Improvement for the Health and Social Care Partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report this morning. It is the Saturday report that we have been bringing for a number of months now. I hope that members will feel that this is much more up-to-date information than we've had previously. We're working hard to bring this really quickly into this Audit and Scrutiny Committee so that members have the opportunity to look at the performance and to review the activity that we've undertaken over the last quarter within the Health and Social Care Partnership, focusing particularly on the social work and social care services that are delegated into the Integration Joint Board from Clerk Manager Council. You will note that we continue to have challenges around the accessing and collation of data. Wendy Robertson, I see, is on this meeting, and I think it's really important to say that over the past few months, the Health and Social Care Partnership have been working very closely with Clerk Manager Council around the transformation of the social care agenda, so including the focus on the work with PricewaterhouseCoopers around how we can do prevention, how we can use tech, and how we can ensure that our social work front door, in inverted commas, is integrated into our community health services, as well as being integrated within Clerk Manager Council. We've also been working with our colleagues within the Strive programme to ensure that we've got really clear links around that social work front door, so that we're absolutely, as Lorraine has just described, ensuring that we're bringing together all the elements of Clerk Manager into one place. And I know that that is a recurring theme within this meeting and across the council more generally. So I hope you are assured that we are taking that approach, which is about this is your HSCP and how we work closely together to ensure that we're working on that prevention, the independence, the re-ablement, as well as that where people have had to go into hospital, they are not delayed in hospital, they're coming home or into a homely setting with the correct and appropriate level of support for them. Thank you. I'm really happy to take questions.
Yes, thanks very much. I'll just kick off with on page 199, self-directed support. So again, we're seeing the highest level of self-directed support being at the option 3. Which obviously we're wanting to move towards options 1 and 2 as being more sort of prominent. Have you seen any progress going forward in those areas?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we are, and we're actually hosting a self-directed support workshop supported by Self-Directed Support Scotland, Social Work Scotland's self-directed support team, Scotland Excel, and the PA network for Scotland, and we're having a local in Alloa Town Hall 17th of February, I think. And so we're bringing together all of our staff across our community health services, across our social work services within Stirling and Clerk Manager to really embed and think about the progress we've made. We've trained all of our staff across not just social work, but also our administration and business staff to ensure that you understand the flexibility, the principles of the Act and how we deliver. So that will be the culmination of probably about 2.5, 3 years work to get us into a much more positive space to talk about where we've been and absolutely where we need to go. We know we have work to do around this, but we've made a consistent effort following funding through the Integration Joint Board for a dedicated worker who's working closely with us. You'll also be aware that we work really closely with Self-Directed Support Forth Valley, and we have a well worthwhile waiting programme, which is absolutely focused on that front door so that people absolutely know their options at the point that they come through the MDT, the multidisciplinary team, through Clerk Manager, through Stirling, and being really clear that people understand those options early on. This will take some time for people to understand and feel confident about all of the options, but we're absolutely clear that this is a key area of work for us.
And I would imagine that, I'll say is this right, that a move towards more empowerment is really a way of prevention. Yeah. Councillor McTaggart.
Hi, Wendy. Self-directed support has been a bugbear of mine for years and years and years. I believe Judy's working closely on that, is that right? We met earlier a few months back and we spoke about self-directed support, and I think Judy was leading on that at that time. So the options being available is one thing. So I'd like to ask what we're doing to provide providers who are able to link into those options, because I know that that's thin on the ground in Club Manager. The different services are very thin on the ground, and the opportunity for people to choose services is almost nil because of the fact that we have very little of them. So you're sort of you're a take it or leave it situation in Club Manager, and I'm just wondering what are we doing to improve that, and also what we're doing to encourage people and reassure people that they'll get support if they end up in a position where technically they become employers through accessing self-directed support, and is there support there to help people through that kind of minefield? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McTaggart. I think in terms of choice and control, I think we do have challenges around, to use a business term, the readiness of our market locally, and that work has been improved around some of the commissioning work, the commissioning consortium work we're doing around mental health, around our alcohol and drug partnership. And in order for us to be able to create a market, we need to be able to move our money around to create that market at a local level. So we need to be able to do some fairly significant work to modernise and redesign our services for people. The other issue that we have is that actually the opportunities for personal assistance and for people to be able to employ them is, I think we have a comms piece that's not local to Club Manager, it's a national issue. There is something about how we market those employment opportunities for people, because I think for some people that can feel quite scary, one, to be an employer, and also two, to be employed within that space. So I think we have a comms piece, which is why we're working so closely with our national colleagues around ensuring that we have the PA network and that support in place for people, that self-directed support Forth Valley is there to support supported people, but also, as you rightly say, those who become employers, because that can feel quite daunting. But for lots of people, what we're actually gathering through the self-directed support lived experience panel is the stories for people who've taken a direct payment and are working with their family members, working with their employees to deliver the care and support that is right for that individual and is assessed as right for that individual. So there is significant work, and if I can offer an invitation to come to the workshop, you'd be very welcome to come along, and we can certainly forward that if that's appropriate and you would wish to come. More than happy for you to be part of that, because I think what you'll see is the collaboration that Lorraine talks so eloquently about around how we work as a whole system and how we work for the people, for us, for Club Manager and Stirling.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Take the calendar, but if you send me the details, I would appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks, Sherry.
Anyone else? Okay. Just again, thanks very much for bringing. Sorry, I'm moving the report. I should have said that. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was a little bit slow in getting that final word. Just a very quick question, Wendy, on 3.5 on page 192. You say there are some challenges in accessing data. Is that weaknesses in the collection system, or are you meeting obstructions and blockages to getting the information?
I think we have challenges with our systems, which I think have been well rehearsed within this committee. Certainly, we are working closely with all of our colleagues across what we would consider the support services within Manager Council. And I think we probably in the last year have really turned a corner about how those working relationships are working in a much more positive way. So for me, I think, yeah, we have systems issues, but there is something about old-fashioned communication that also works effectively as well to ensure that we are working in for us, a multidisciplinary team way across the whole system. So yeah, there are challenges, but we are seeking to address them, and the work that Wendy Robertson is leading on is absolutely going to bring us into a place where we will have a modern system which will benefit certainly our workers, but will also benefit the people we are providing care and support to.
Fine, thanks. So we can consider that a disappearing problem then?
I defer to Wendy, but I would absolutely hope that we have a disappearing problem here, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'm happy to move the paper. Again, thanks so much, Wendy, for all the work that goes into this for all the different areas, because I know that there are so many areas that are covered in the report. There'll be quite a bit of work to pull that together. So thank you. So happy to move. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Benny, open to debate. Would you like to debate? Nope. Okay, so are we happy to note this paper and the performance of Clackmannshire locality within the Clackmannshire and Stirling HSCP? Happy to note. Thank you. On to revision of contract standing orders, and that's going to be Derek Barr to present this paper.
Morning, Chair. Thank you very much for taking my presentation here. The purpose of this report is to provide the Audit and Scrutiny Committee with a concise summary of the proposed changes made to contract standing orders. It's recommended that the committee note and challenge report and comment, as we always do, and hopefully agree to submit the revised contract standing orders as set out in Appendix 1 to the next available council meeting for approval, and recommend their adoption and implementation with effect from the 19th of March 2026. I've also provided you with an appendix, Appendix 2, which gives you some summary of key changes and the purpose of the report, which hopefully will help you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, anybody? No? Is there anything that you'd really like to highlight to us that's a major change, or is it mostly just kind of non-substantial changes?
The whole thing was a massive rewrite, to be honest with you. There was proposed, well, there was changes to the national legislation in the UK, which was primarily based for English, Welsh and Northern Ireland legislation, which came into effect last February. And as part of that, it was an understanding, a well-rehearsed understanding, that the legislation would also affect Scotland quite fundamentally. So we postponed, we would have hoped to have brought this to the committee a lot earlier, but we postponed that because we thought, right, it's going to change. What comes from that is that if there is any change in the legislation, which will have to go through an Act of Parliament in Scotland, that change likely happening sometime in 2027, and I felt it was not right just to leave it hanging around, because there was some fundamental changes there, particularly with EU legislation, for example, that doesn't apply any longer. So hopefully the changes are a wee bit clearer, a bit more concise, and tackle some of the things that officers in their use of these maybe found some issues with it, and so we're trying to make it a bit clearer for people to use.
Okay, any other questions? I'm happy to move this paper. As I've commented to you before, Derek, I think what you've done at the end of this is really, really helpful in terms of laying out all the key areas of change, because there's nothing worse than a report with just loads of track changes, or you don't know where the changes have been made. So I think it left us with a few questions. It's not because we don't want to scrutinise. I think it's just that you've done such an excellent job in pulling this together that we've not needed to ask any specific questions. So thank you very much for that. Can I have a seconder? If they're going to vote to debate. So are we happy to vote the report and agree to submit the revised contract standing orders as set out in Appendix 1 to the next available council meeting for approval, and to recommend their adoption and implementation with effect from 19th March 2026? Happy for that? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Derek. And we're on to our final paper, which is Environmental Health Official Food Control Progress Report, and that is John. So over to you.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this progress report is to inform the committee of progress since April 25 to end of December in terms of programmed food law inspections due to be carried out throughout the current financial year. The report shows that we continue to underperform in category 2B, which is the largest volume of businesses. However, we've improved in all other areas and will meet the targets in all other areas. The team has been understaffed for 2.5 years. I'm happy to report that we are currently recruiting a full-time AHO, which will help massively with the recovery since COVID and the planned inspections that were missed during that time. The report also refers to Food Standards Scotland developing a new food law delivery platform, which will also make massive improvements to changes of categories, timescales between inspections, introduce digital technology, and also introduce a charging scheme for registration. Happy to take any questions. And do any questions? More questions online? No. Yeah, I thought you might put circling.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, again, slow on the finger there. Last two items on page 267. Well, we touched on this the other day, but I'll just bring them out for the purpose of the public meeting. When you're saying in 3.3.4 that, however, these band 2B and 3B businesses will always be visited if any complaints regarding food safety hygiene issues are received, would you top that up with doing just completely random sampling, doing sort of 5% of the whole group just to check, just looking for any things that may not be being reported but could be an issue? That's one question. The second one relates to the next paragraph, 3.3.5. Again, as touched on before, you are supplying help, advice and assistance to businesses that are perhaps starting up for the first time, and so effectively you're training them in the trade, in that part of the trade that you legislate for. And I wonder if you would think of introducing a charging structure for that, because it does help to balance the books.
Thank you, Councillor. Unfortunately, we don't have resources to carry out random sampling. However, we do liaise with the neighbouring local authorities. And if there are any issues highlighted, or if we highlight an issue, then we would all go out and visit similar premises to look for these types of issues. We also do physical food sampling. We have a food sampling programme, and this can raise issues which would then create like a targeted intervention. And with regards to the charging, this is something that Food Standards Scotland are looking to introduce under the new SAFER programme that they're currently developing, just to get funding from the Scottish Government for this programme.
So it's not something you can introduce yourselves. It needs to come from out with.
Yes, there's no other local authority charges for registration, unfortunately. But it is something they're looking at.
But Clemanisha leads the way in so many ideas. Can we not lead on this one?
It's something we could discuss.
Yeah, so you went blank there, or maybe it was my headset. What was the last thing you said?
That
The response. Can you repeat your response in case of calling?
All right, sorry, yes, this is something we could look into.
Okay, all right, thanks for that.
In terms of, obviously, again, there was some press coverage about the different establishments where there were issues and concerns, and a lot of the responses from the public really were, or from different establishments, a lot of this is administrative or paperwork. Is that the case? It's not always that there's maybe a food hygiene issue, there might be lots of different issues.
Yes, the reason isn't always due to practices or cleanliness. If there's a recurring issue that has been mentioned in the previous inspection, then that would automatically make them an improvement required rather than a pass, and they would stay an improvement required until those issues are resolved. So that can be structural, it can be paperwork. In England, they have a scoring system 1 to 5, which gives a better idea of the standards of the business, but we only have the option of improvement required to pass.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? No? Okay. I'm happy to move this paper. Thanks for bringing these papers to us. It's really useful, and there's so much information and detail within that, again, for us to be able to see. So again, I don't think it's I think there's not been so much scrutiny because you've been so comprehensive in the paper you've provided us. So thank you very much for that. So happy to move. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Benny. And Ed, would anybody like to debate? No? So we're happy to note the paper? Okay. So that concludes the formal business of today's Audit and Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'd like to thank both members and officers for their contributions and engagement throughout the session. The committee will recall we agreed as part of our 24-25 annual report that in order to support reflection, review and self-development, members would on a voluntary basis be invited to remain briefly after each meeting to reflect on what went well and identify areas of improvement. I therefore invite any members who wish to take part in the short reflective discussion to stay. Could I kindly ask all other attendees to leave at this point and request that the recording be stopped as the formal business of the committee is now concluded.